What's up, my beautiful people? How y'all doing? It's your boy Erik Range, Mr. Chairman, and we are here on a fine Friday afternoon. And listen, we're here for another Fire Fridays. Y'all know every Friday we bring y'all some fire conversations, bring y'all some of the best people in the industry to learn from, to listen to, the people that y'all have to know. Roz this week is traveling, man. As y'all know, we coming up on the 420 holiday, and for M4MM, we're doing a week of just service, man, and it starts for us tomorrow. We are all over the country this week doing all kinds of good stuff for the community, making sure that we are doing our part. I mean, this is what our organization exists for. So tomorrow we actually have an expungement clinic out in Arizona where we're going to be helping people get their marijuana possession charges off of their records so that they can start to re-enter society with a clean slate. We provide some wraparound services. We do a bunch of different things. But so Roz couldn't be here today, so I'm running it. I'm holding it down today. But I had to bring somebody with me. I was like, all right, Roz ain't gonna be here today. Let me bring in somebody. And we bring on a lot of awesome females and women to the show who are doing all kind of great things. But this week we decided, you know what? Let's have the fellas hang out today. So I brought a couple of my friends on. We're gonna sit and we're gonna talk and we're gonna add value to you all. So sit back. But first person I want to bring up to the stage, man, is none other than the Cannamatic himself. All right, Stanley Atkins II, the M4MM Georgia chapter president. Yo, he don't need no introduction. Y'all know who he is. Y'all been listening to him. Y'all been following him. But yo, and he's no stranger to CannaTalk and to the M4MM family. Brother, I couldn't think of a better person to be doing this with today. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone that's tuning in. You're not going to want to miss today's show. We've got some great information with an amazing guest. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.
Yes, that's what's up. But Sam, man, while I get my camera right over here, tell the people who you are, where you are, because, I know you. Most people out there know you. But we want to make sure the new listeners, the people who are coming on, make sure they know who you are, man.
My name is Stanley Atkins II. I'm known in the cannabis industry as the Cannamatic. I am currently the Georgia chapter director of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I've been working in the cannabis advocacy and education space since about 2015, 2016. I'm a United States Navy veteran. I served 2 deployments. I came home after serving my country and began to serve my community. So my background in healthcare actually comes from spending 7.5 years as a firefighter paramedic here in Clayton County. And once I started understanding and really researching medical cannabis and the therapeutic effectiveness of it, I really transitioned my knowledge basis in healthcare and emergency medicine into the endocannabinoid system and the therapeutic alternatives, as well as the advocacy, education, and the business side of things.
And man, you've been doing amazing things, definitely being an advocate, being our boots on the ground there in Georgia as Georgia moves forward on hemp, on medical marijuana, on everything, man. You're smack dab in the middle of it. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate you for being here today because you got some things that we're going to talk about as well that you've been working on that some people may not know about. So this may be some new announcements for folks today. But I want to bring up our other guest, man. Another one of my brothers in this case, man. I've been rocking with this dude now for a couple years now, man. We've shown up on different news channels together, talking about the industry here in Florida. And honestly, he's one of, I think, the quietest kept secrets in the cannabis space. But he's had some real, insight to share with y'all today. Some things he's been working on that he's now bringing to the public and whatnot. So I'm glad to have my brother here, Dr. Irve Damas. He's down in South Florida with Grassroots Wellness. And so, Dr. Damas, welcome to the stage, man. Tell everybody who you are and what you've been doing over the last couple of years. Don't get too deep into it. We're going to, just kind of tell them a little bit about who you are,
All right. Thanks, man. Stanley, it's a pleasure to meet you, my brother. Thank you for the service here and doing the wonderful things that you're doing in Georgia. Of course, Erik, my dude, we've been kicking it like barnstorming the state of Florida for a couple of years, right? Meeting the people where they're at. So quick story, I'm a former professional football player, played linebacker for the Bills way back in the days, blew my knee out, got into health and wellness, and later on reinvented myself as a physician. And during that time, I think the confluence of my life's experiences led me to cannabis because of injuries, surgeries, and all the other things you can imagine that come along with playing a collision sport like football. So, about 2017, when they finally legalized our expanded medical marijuana program in Florida, I decided to open a clinic specifically tailored towards cannabis treatment. We do a lot of like hardcore cannabis medicine. In terms of like establishing ourselves as like a specialty. And we do research. We just finished a 3-year research study on the effects of CBD and quality of life in former elite level athletes. We just presented it at the Conference for Cannabis Research last week. We also submitted to the NFL for their call for research on CBD and pain management from their pain management committee. So, that's kind of the thing. And then, we do like the good stuff too. We got a great 420 Day of Wellness coming up. So we do a lot of that stuff and some holistic things, kind of try to like combine, I think, the best of both worlds, right? Like traditional Western medicine with our Eastern and traditional holistic medicines and plant-based medicines, and use data to kind of drive those decisions, those choices. So that's where we're at, man.
Eric, you're on mute.
Yeah, here we go. I gotta remember. I'm in a space with some noise behind me, so I try to stay on mute when I'm not talking. But I gotta remember to mute myself. But listen, we're gonna get into some of the nooks and crannies of that research, because I think that is such an important part of this industry. But I'm just excited. Let me just say this right off bat, man. I talk about this all the time. There are some amazing people in this industry, and there are amazing people like me doing some amazing things in this industry, and we bring value to this industry. You just said a mouthful in just about 20, or in about 30 seconds. You said a mouthful of everything that you're working on, and I think it just underscores the point that I've been driving home. Stanley underscored the point when he first got on, and he's talking about after he served his country, he went home to serve his community. I wrote an article a couple of years back about where are Black men in cannabis. And really and truly, we've been serving our community. That's what we do. When we start businesses, we start those businesses to serve our community. Even if it's not directly, a service for the community, we find ways to use that as a bridge or as a way to connect back to our community. So again, I appreciate both of you guys for the work that y'all have been doing, over this last couple of years and so on. And I'm just excited to be able to be a cheerleader for y'all's stories, you know what I mean, to be able to show them here on CannaTalk, because we get a lot of people on here, man, and we bring a lot of dope sisters on here, man, a lot of dope sisters. Sometimes I'm on the show and it's just me and a bunch of, women who are doing amazing things. So today, to be able to be with some of my brothers, man, I'm just super excited for the conversation, super excited to show people that, no, we are here and we're adding value in some ways that you wouldn't even imagine, right? So let's get into it, right? Research. We know that this plant really and truly has been hindered by research. The federal legality has hindered the research, but then they turn around and they say we need more research to make it more legal, right? So it's like it's kind of like this give and a take. And what do you see in that regard, Stanley? Like, you being an advocate, how important is research for you when you go into, say, your legislator to talk about why they should be making certain decisions and why they should get out of the way of the position? Talk about it from that standpoint.
Thank you so much. Research is paramount. Years ago, when the cannabis conversations started happening at the capitals around the country in different states, there was a lot of patients that came forward. There were a lot of cases where they talked about their personal conditions or their experiences with surgeries and disease processes. And that was a great foundation because it opened the eyes of legislators and attendees and to the public to the fact that cannabis could potentially be a therapeutic alternative. We've now transitioned from that. They want data. Our legislators here really want comprehensive data. They want double-blind studies. They want independent research studies that's backed up by a secondary study, which was, seconded by another research team. And those numbers are what are going to help push our entire industry forward. I look forward to learning more about your research program, Dr. Damas, because for here, they want to know how many patients have already been affected by this law. How many registered patients do we have? Where people say, hey, we need more licenses for this state or that state. If you're a medical program, you have to have the patient demographic to support the expansion. And where do you get those numbers of how many patients? From data and research. So research is one of the most important parts, even in business and for the expansion of our entire industry.
No doubt. Right.
And Doc, you want to follow up on that? Absolutely, because I was going to ask you from your perspective as a physician, this is not something that you guys learn about in medical school, right? So everything that you've had to learn, you've had to go outside, above and beyond your normal practice to be able to serve your patients. And for you as a physician, it doesn't get more real than the data, the data, right? And so, talk about, again, from your perspective as a physician, how important is the research, is the data to be able to help you serve your patients, but then also to help inform the conversation about legalization as well?
Well, one of the things that you'll find, and you find this, I'm sure Stan has found this as well, is that the people doing the work in this field have a personal connection, the kind of heavy duty groundwork. Of course, there are speculators and people looking to, make a quick buck, but everyone else is pretty much in here because there's a connection to this for whatever reason. For me, it was medical, right? So that drives it. I started experiencing the symptoms of playing football for a long period of time, right? So, I'm going through surgeries, I'm having the headaches, the insomnia, the anxiety, all this stuff. And I'd gone to pretty much every specialist that you could find, right? So I was in med school at the time saying something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. And, and going from specialist to specialist to specialist, and each person prescribing me something different. And I had, I wouldn't say this was malicious because these were people who were my attendings or preceptors at the time. So we had good relationships, but this is what they knew, right? So they could only do what they knew. And so here's a prescription for this. Here's some Percocets for your pain. Here's a Xanax for your insomnia and your anxiety. Here's a Seroquel for your mood. Here's an Oxycontin. I mean, there were tons of this stuff. None of it worked. And so I had found myself, and this is why I say the personal connection. I think we all get to this is when I personally find myself in this situation when I'm going through all these people and doing all this stuff, but I'm getting worse. I really found cannabis as a last, all right, I might as well do this thing, even though they told me in the hospital and in medical school that this was bad. So when you look at from the academic perspective of things, we weren't taught. There's a whole generation that, and I hear the generation that's being taught now, they're getting exposed to it. But if you think about the generations of physicians and medical professionals who are going through the educational systems here, the information about cannabis was pretty much the legalities of it or the don't do drugs kind of thing, right? And so, the ability to treat patients well is limited because you have no knowledge, and the institutions that should be giving this knowledge don't have that as well. So the research aspect of it drives the ability for those in positions of power, those who are leaders, thought leaders in academia, and those who are going to be teaching, people in my, so to speak, my sphere, how to deal with this, as opposed to just saying drugs are bad, how to deal with this in terms of taking care of people. And so the research, because of the schedule of cannabis, of marijuana, Schedule 1 meant it had no medicinal or research value completely, right? So you couldn't do anything here. You could do some test tube stuff. You can do some lab stuff with rats and stuff. But of course, that stuff, you actually need, in vitro human trials to do that. You couldn't do that. They were doing some stuff overseas in Israel. So that's a lot of the stuff, Israel, some stuff in South America that was driving us forward. But even that wasn't, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't like there was a preponderance of this stuff. So there is a lot of this kind of, gray area. How can you, be sure of the drug-drug interactions, right? So you have to really like try that out, right? We have the theory, but we have to do that. What's the optimal dose and what route, right? So if I do if I eat something as opposed to sublingually, as opposed to a nasal spray, as opposed to IV infusion, right? What's the time of onset? How long does it last, right? So how could I tell Stan, all right, good, this person is in, really serious pain at the moment, and we need something that's going to knock this pain out. You're going to put X amount of THC and X amount of solution and then give it to them, and then 4 hours later, you're going to give them some more, right? We didn't have this kind of stuff. It limits us. Limits us in terms of, what conditions you can treat, right? There's so much out there in spectrums. We just did a thing on lupus, anti-inflammatory disease, inflammatory conditions, autoimmune conditions, and cannabis. And you look at the spectrum of autoimmune diseases, anything from multiple sclerosis to rheumatoid arthritis to lupus, like I said, and it's like, there's potential here. Like people are like, there's so much potential here. And the treatment, for example, for something like that, let's say we're going to treat your RA, your lupus. Some of the treatments for that are poisonous. As a matter of fact, people with lupus die from 3 things, right? They die from cardiovascular disease, they die from infection, and they die from renal failure, right? The infection happens as a result of the treatments, the treatments that they're getting for the condition. So one of the actual treatments is killing the people. Imagine if you could have a way to say cannabis can treat it effectively, as effectively without killing you. So this is what I'm looking at in terms of research.
Yeah. You just said a lot there, man. And Stanley, feel free to jump in if you have any questions to unpack any of that. But let me get into some of the research. One of the things that I love about what you did in terms of when you started to think about what you would research, right? You focus on the group that you knew best, right? The athletes. Right. And one of the reasons why I'm so interested in your particular research study is because when I think about my community and the African-American community, how we're going to be overlooked in many cases when it comes to research, you focusing on athletes and going to the NFL, one of the largest employers of African-American men in the world, okay, that means that we're going to learn something about how this plant interacts with our community and those particular issues and diseases and so on. And I know you're focused, on a certain part, maybe on the brain injuries and so on, but I think it can open the door for more. So can you talk a little bit about what was your inspiration to get into the research? Tell us a little bit what the focus of the research study is, and get into that. And Stanley, again, feel free to jump in with questions and stuff like that too.
Yeah, we don't want to leave my man Stan out, right? We want Stan to be. We want Stan. We want when Roz comes back, we want her jealous. You're like, yeah, we need to get some more brothers in the club, So what you pretty much put it hit the nail on the head. When this happened with this research study, this was 2000. This came together in December of 2017. So this was 2 months after our medical marijuana program in Florida was actually put into effect. And I think that was like October 16th, 2017, right? I was actually designing a research study at the hospital. I was still in my radiology residency, and I was designing a research study, and it was like, it had been accepted, and it was like, okay, we're gonna go do this research project, right? Like on wound care and interventional radiology. And then I was like, but I want to do this cannabis thing as well. So I flew out to Denver, and I met this group of people out there, and they were like, hey, we've been trying to do this research study. We've got this great idea, but we don't have any athletes. We don't have any access to the athletes. We don't really have a supervising physician or somebody that's willing to be a part of this, right, to put their name to it. And of course, we got to do some fundraising. And I was like, well, what are you guys talking about? Let's see what you have. And they gave me the outline of it, and I was like, let's make this happen, right? So we did a few things. And I was like, this is specifically the thing I said was like, I played football. So my group of dudes, like, that's important to me. So I'm going to make sure that happens. We jumped through a lot of hoops. Before you do a human trial study, this was a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And we had to go through a bunch of things. And because of the categorization of CBD, and this was going to be with cannabidiol, we couldn't get an approval from the IRBs, which you need to do studies. And so we would take 3 steps forward and then we get smashed, right? Like, no, this is not going to happen. CBD, the IRB, it's legal. And so we got like caught in kind of like a wormhole or like a endless loop for about a year or something until they passed the Farm Bill. So they passed the Farm Bill in December of 2018, right? Which is like a year after that. And then in January of 2019, they signed it into law. So we had everything ready. Like, we were just like, all right, we're sitting there. I had put a little bit of skin on the line because, it was technically illegal. It was an illegal substance that I had signed off from this research. But I was like, listen, I mean, if they're going to come, like, take my license and do something like that, right? What are they just going to make me a martyr? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got to take away a bit of my ability to make an income and a living in my chosen profession. But what you really would be doing was adding fuel to this fire. So what we did was, the best thing about these guys is that great confluence of events. There was a team at the University of Colorado Boulder that was doing a traumatic brain injury study. Really brilliant dudes. And since my other team was in Denver, they just came across, like, one of those things came across and was like, hey, you guys are doing this brain injury study. We got this doctor that's a football player that was interested, and they were like, you should check out this device. So they had this portable EEG, electroencephalogram thing, which is like a little helmet, and you pop it on your head. And normally when you do EEGs, you got to like stick the pads all over the person's head. So this thing was literally like a helmet. You pop it on the person's head, the electrodes come out. It was something like out of a sci-fi movie. But they had to devise these algorithms that put the subjects through a series of tests: read and reaction time, delay in reaction, delay in perception, memorization. They did all these things, and they could tell you what was going on in your, like, we could see that, right?
So they gave you the way to measure it. Yeah.
Yeah, they gave you a quantifiable way to measure what was going on. And then they gave you this wonderful topographic pictures of the brain with like color zones that show areas of increased activity and decreased activity. So this is the funniest part. So in May of 2018, we go and we're like, I'm going to be the test pig. I'm going to be the test dummy for this. So we go out there and they stick this thing on my head and they run me through the tests. And the guy who was with the device, manufacturer's rep was looking at my results, and he looks at me. He's like, "You played on the right side of the field, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I could tell." And I said, "How could you tell that?" He goes, "Well, look at the scan of your brain. The whole left side of your head is cold. Like the electrical activity on that side of your head and the right side of your head is different." And so, playing. Yeah, that was crazy because I played right outside linebacker. So everything came at me from this side, right? Like I literally hit all the time with this side of my body. And I was like, that's crazy. So we did it. They gave me some CBD and then reassessed me an hour and a half later. Did the test again. There was improvement. Of course, with everything, like, if you do it soon after, there's a little bit of improvement just because you know what's happened. You know what to do, right? So it's going to be, but I had like a significant improvement. Then when they looked at the topograph of my brain, the left side of my head was like orange and red before when it was blue. And so I was like, I think this is it. Like, this is what we need right here. And so we put together the study, and what we did with them was compare. We had this little app. So let's say you guys, it was, so we split them up into like, placebo and control groups, and nobody knew what they were doing. Then we gradually increased the dose. We did a baseline where everybody was 0 milligrams. Then we did 25 milligrams was the first dose. Then 2 weeks later, you increased to 50 milligrams. So 25 in the morning, 25 at night. Then 2 weeks later, you increase to 75 milligrams, 25 in the morning, 50 at night. And then at the end, final 2 weeks, you did 100 milligrams, 50 in the morning, 50 at night. And then every time they came in, every 2 weeks, we ran them through the tests.
I think we're having a connectivity problem.
No, did we lose Dr. Thomas?
I think we're having
Man, Stan, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting over here like, wow. I'm over here tapping people in like, y'all got to hear this conversation right now. I mean,
and that's very, very interesting research. I really hope we can get him back on because, as he said, that active monitoring, most of the tests that have been performed up until now were more passive monitoring. It was never during the actual game. It was never during training or during active contact. So the fact that they have measurables from to what side of the field his brain is stimulated by.
And I believe a lot of the the studies were, based on the subject reporting back, right? And again, there we all know there's some level of error in that as well. But when you have this machine that is actively reading, like, oh my goodness, that it is just. I'm sitting here and I'm picturing it in my head, right? And I hope he can get back on, man. We're going to definitely hope to get him back in here because he was getting into some good stuff there, man. And I'm really curious to hear some of the results of the study. I know they just recently started presenting their data and so on. So he and I have been talking about this for some time now. So again, this was just perfect timing to have him on. But Stan, while we wait for him to get back in, man, because again, we certainly hope he can get in. But this is just but one study. Like you are right now in the midst of putting something together that I think is also going to be very special, working right there in Georgia. So let's get into that, man. Let's talk a little bit about what you're working on in Georgia, how it came to be, what you guys are going to be looking at, and so on.
Yes, so I have to acknowledge my esteemed colleague, Dr. Mary McNabb. Dr. McNabb, if you're watching, thank you so much for everything. About 2 years ago, joint venture company C3RN Research, which was an organization based out of Boston, Massachusetts. I participated in a veterans medical cannabis survey about 2 years ago. The research study was able to present some amazing data that actually some of the quantifiable data that was taken from that study was presented to our Georgia Medical Cannabis Commission just before the pandemic. And what they realized was it produced some strong numbers, but it painted a picture of what are some of the barriers to access, for veterans, what are they using, how much are they spending, so we can put together better support programs. Well, now she came together with a strong team of physicians, Dr. James Smith, there's a lot of strong team here. We'll be making a full announcement here soon. I don't want to give too many names, but there was a recent press release. And so our Georgia Cannabis Research Program is specifically designed for the state of Georgia. Now, this research, if you want to participate in the research, it's open to the public. It is for clinicians and medical personnel. And that is from surgeons and physicians all the way down to medical technicians. We wanted to make sure to encompass everyone that works in healthcare, because a lot of the studies are mainly for physicians or the higher level clinicians. And we understand that with the wraparound services that these patients are getting and the lack of education in our industry, we need to encompass everyone. So this study is going to be for physicians, again, any type of medical personnel, and it's going to gauge your current knowledge of medical cannabis. What are some of the things that you support for medical cannabis? It's going to have research programs in there for why don't you support it? What information that you may or may not have, because we want to get the information from the care providers, from the clinicians, from the licensed personnel, including dentists and oral surgeons, because I feel that if we had the full gambit of healthcare personnel, our end data is going to have a stronger representation of where we need to go with the next set of evidence that's going to be based solely on the data. And this data is going to be used to help grow the efficacy of our program, but also gauge the efficacy of the program in Georgia as far as clinicians, physicians, and caregiving personnel are all concerned.
I love, what you're doing in terms of studying access, right? Because that's one of the things that when we talk about communities of color, when we talk about veterans, when we talk about some of the most vulnerable communities, really, truly, that becomes the hugest barrier to getting this medication is access to the information to even learn about it. Many people in certain communities and among homeless populations and so on, they don't go to a family physician, right? Like their information comes from community clinics and healthcare centers and so on. And so I love that you guys are expanding this, to reach and get information from all type of healthcare providers so that you're learning about, well, where is the information being disseminated? Who's getting that information and how are they applying it? I think that's so important. We got Dr. Damas back on. And listen, brother, when you dropped, we almost lost our mind here because everybody's sitting on edge. Everybody's sitting on edge and the conversation is getting good. And I was like, man, we lost him. At first, I thought it was my end, but I'm glad you're back, man. And we were just getting a little bit into Stanley stuff while we waited for you to get back. But I think it's so important. And so if you want, Stanley, if it's all right, we're going to hit pause right quick on yours and then kind of follow back up where Damas left off, if you will. And then, we'll tie them back in together, though. But go ahead, Damas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I caught the second half of what Stan was saying. So I want to listen to the first half because it sounds real interesting. Yeah, man, the feds got me. Either that or it was Roz. She sabotaged. He was like, nah, these brothers, they making me look bad. Roz.
They dropping too much right now.
Roz was like, cut them off right there. So we were at the graduated dosing. So we got up to like 100 milligrams, total. So it's 50 milligrams in the morning, 50 milligrams in the evening. And so they would also have an opportunity to give subjective responses. So we had an app that would prompt them every day to give feedback on their quality of life measurements, which was how's your sleep, how's your mood, how's your pain, and it would like keep them interactive, and they could, press the button and just say, I'm feeling better today. And then we can compare the responses from the subjective measurements to their WAVI, the EEG things, right? And so couple of things that were really interesting. And then the one additional thing that we did, we had multiple routes of administration. That was one of the questions I mentioned earlier was like, which way is better? So we had, tincture, we had capsules, we had nanospray tincture, we had nasal spray, and I think we had some capsules as well. So I can tell you right now, the nasal spray, bogus, nobody's using it. So the premise behind using nasal sprays because it's an efficient delivery system in terms of absorption, right? Gets right in. But the sheer volume that you have to use to get up to certain doses becomes so unpalatable. We actually had one subject drop out. It's like, I ain't doing this. Like, this is way too much, right? It's out of control. So, wait
a second, Doc. You might have just blew up somebody's whole business model when you said that right now. Somebody's invested somewhere. Like, what did he say? Did he say the nasal spray? Didn't we just?
So you're getting up to, so when we got up to the higher doses, right? So you go 50 milligrams, 75, 100 milligrams of CBD a day in this solution, in this aqueous solution that you gotta like. I mean, it's only, a normal nasal spray or mist is 2 sprays and you're done. And even that is mildly uncomfortable. Now imagine having to do 10 to 15 or 2, right? It's just, so maybe it's impractical at a certain dose. But what we did find, which was really great, was that at 50 and 75 milligrams, that was peak performance. Everyone who was in the treatment arm said, I feel great, like I feel best at this. It started at 50, it peaked at 75, and at 100, you started seeing like a little kind of decrease in benefits. at 100, some people were complaining about, man, I feel a little sluggish now, which was really interesting, right? But it also correlated with what we saw on the EEG. So during that time, we saw like a 32% decrease in reaction time, right? Which is like big deal. And when you compared it to the placebo group, there was a 21% decrease in reaction time. And you're like, well, the placebo group, like I said, there's going to be an improvement just based on the fact that you're doing something. You know what to do. You kind of like, you're getting more skilled at it, right? The second thing is the placebo group, which was interesting. And I'm sure Stanley could relate to this, is that once people, no inhalers, we did not try any inhalers, but that's something to think about, that once people start seeing medical professionals regularly, their health is going to be better, right? So every 2 weeks, you're going into this clinic to see a doctor, and we're doing the whole, like every single time, with whole screening each time, right? Blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. So we're checking out our patients. So automatically, when you leave there, you get some feedback, right? So you start living a little healthier just because you're seeing a doctor either in Miami or Denver. So we had an increase in those guys just from having access to medical care regularly, which they wouldn't do. But there was a 12% difference between the two groups in reaction times, which is nothing to scoff at. And there was a big difference in their reported. Like, the other thing was that people in the treatment arm, they knew, it's supposed to be a double-blind study, so you're not supposed to know what you got. But after once they got up to like 25, 50, they were like, I can tell. They could literally be like, I can tell, and their spouses were giving them feedback. That was interesting. So a lot of the spouses would bring the subjects in and be like, hey, this guy is much better, than he was.
I was gonna say, did you guys collect any of that data from the spouses as well?
We didn't collect any of the data. It's written, well, actually, not formally. It's written in the notes. So I made sure, that was a point to say, hey, this guy's wife says, he's sleeping better, he's more pleasant, he can remember things better. I think the spouses are good, great. Like,
I agree.
Right?
That's why I asked if you took that data, because that to me would be even more interesting sometimes than what you would get directly from from the subject, because you have a outside objective observer who's providing that feedback. So I think that in and of itself, it should be something to consider in future research or future iterations of it. Let me ask you this, Doc, in terms of the actual meds, because with this plant, it is a plant, and there are levels of inconsistency from one batch, from one harvest to the next harvest, everything. Was this an isolate? Was this a full spectrum, broad spectrum? Can you tell us a little bit more about the meds, were there terpenes, their extraction methods or anything? And again, I don't know how much you can share, but
So we got supplies. We had manufacturers who donated the product to us. They were all full spectrum products grown in Colorado. 3 extraction methods. So we had CO2, we had ethanol, and then we had boiling. So one of the capsules was done from the boil down method. So we had those 3. The nano spray was a CO2. So I can tell you the 3 that had the highest kind of return in terms of performance on the EEG and the subjective measurements were the nano spray, and that was a CO2. I think it was a sublingual nanospray extraction, right? And that was a full spectrum. We had the capsules. The capsules were the boiled. That was extracted via boiling. And, the yield on boiling is not as great as it is on, like, if you use like hydrocarbons or something like that. And then we had the, not the sublingual, was the capsules and nanosprays. It may have been the sublingual tinctures, but I want to say it wasn't the sublingual tinctures. I think the sublingual tinctures were actually the 4th. So off the top of my mind, I can't remember which was number 3, but the sublingual tinctures were CO2 extracted as well. And they were all MCT oil. So they were all dissolved in that. So I think the nanospray, which is like some sort of proprietary technology kind of thing, right? But we did find that the sublingual applications work well, but the edible, the oral ones work better. All right, so that's what it was. We had 2 pills. Thank you. Now I got it. It's like we had the boiled pills, and then we had the CO2 extracted ones, right? So those 2 were the best, and then the nanospray, and then the sublingual tinctures after that. And then your favorite, the nasal spray, was like the nasal spray. Sorry to all my nasal spray lovers out there. It was just the concentration. Realistically, it was the dilution and the concentration. So if they could probably make it a little bit more concentrated, it wasn't the first week that was intolerable. It wasn't the second week that was intolerable. It was down the line where you got into higher doses. It's just so much, and it was coming back out. It was just, so it was incredible. And these are some of the questions that we had to ask. So what we presented to the NFL took out some of that stuff. We said we wanted to stay at 50 and 75. We could also do things where it was like in milligrams per kilos per pound, but that gets a little bit harder to do because now you've got to titrate these drugs specifically. Well, this medicine specifically, where most manufacturers have standardized, like we're just doing 25 milligrams, we're doing 35 milligrams. So for our purposes, we couldn't do like the milligrams per kilos kind of dosing. We just
well, Doc, I'll tell you, in this next study we have to talk, because I have a way of doing that. I have a way of where we can specifically dose that through one of the products that we're actually releasing through Hemp and Fork. So let's definitely have some conversations about that, because I agree, the more you get into, like you said, that titration and really drilling down. Stan, I think you had a question, but we got some questions from the audience too. So go ahead, Stan.
Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with research projects, who may not be on the research side of the house, what Dr. DeMoss has pretty much told us was that they were able to take CBD products, use them with former athletes or current athletes, and gauge how effective they were at the actual cellular level, guys, at the neurological levels. So for anyone who may be watching, some of the reasons that cannabis is being looked at by the NFL, because I know we have a lot of soft tissue injuries, a lot of musculoskeletal injuries, but also there are a lot of nerve damage. And as he mentioned, with like concussions and CTE, for those who may not know what that is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and it's damage done to the brain from repeated contact. That damage, it damages the myelin sheath that protects nerves over time and degenerates. That's why a lot of patients have signs similar to Alzheimer's and things of that nature in some cases. So what he's saying is that not only have we seen that in some other research studies out of Israel, that CBD and cannabis has been known to potentially regenerate some of that protective barrier or maintain it, this is also showing that in addition to protecting it, it's also stimulating that nerve process, as he stated, with the left side of his brain and watching the left side of the field. So thank you so much for that, Dr. DeMoss. That is amazing research.
It was crazy stuff, man, to I'm telling you, it's one thing to believe it, right? You're like, I'm all in, like, yeah, I think this is the thing. And then to see it, you're like, oh, all right, like we're onto something here. As a matter of fact, Dr. Meshulam, we consulted with him on our dosing regimen. He wanted to do something much more like aggressive. Like he wanted to go up to like 800 milligrams or something, because they've done some stuff in Israel with TBI, traumatic brain injury, for the Israeli Defense Forces, right? So they had a study where they were like hitting these people, giving the soldiers really high doses of cannabinoids, like from the battlefield, like, an IED blew up or whatever, like take this dude and give him a high dose to see that. And we were kind of like, because they got to drive home. Like, so
they still got to function, you know what I mean? They got wives and families to go home to.
The first session, they had a dose and sit with us for an hour afterwards. So even that, that was baked into the protocol, that, we don't know what your metabolism is, right? You're going to sit here for the first, you're going to hang on and let us know. We took their vitals and wrote it down and this and that, just to make sure, because you don't know, this is the kind of stuff that you actually really need to be able to know. So there was like we were able to eliminate some things, and then, like Stan said, and ask some new questions, like you both said, so ask some new questions. So for what we proposed to the NFL was we want to expand it to the larger population of retired players. We'll stick to 50 and the 75, and probably stick to the 3 formulations that we saw, right? And then from there, we can start narrowing things down even more. Maybe at one point do maybe peak plasma concentration testing and that kind of stuff. So we can say to Stan, listen, if you're administering, some sort of cannabis product as an analgesic in the field or whatever, how quick it's going to hit the patient and how quick, you have to come back to them to administer another dose. We don't have like full numbers on all this stuff already, but hopefully, man, we keep plugging along. We'll make it happen. We will.
Absolutely, man. Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
I think that Florida is actually at a very innovative place with that. I saw Dr. Gordon chimed in, and when you were saying like which products work better, I'm sitting over here thinking like I wonder what they use. And when you went to it, Eric, like, hey, what did y'all use? Perfect, because you said the sublinguals, the nano products work better. And for those who may not be familiar with that, some of the newer products that are on the market are called nanotechnology, and what they do is it's faster acting. Now, the long-term effects, it doesn't last as long, but it's faster acting. So, guys, the sublingual tinctures, some of the strips similar to Listerine strips, they absorb directly into your mucosa that's under your tongue. So I figure between that and a capsule, especially like you said, the boil down method, that has a longer half-life at the cellular level. So it does last longer.
And the nano-emulsification also increases the bioavailability of the actual cannabinoids in the plant. And so, Dr. Adamus, we're getting a few questions in regards to the terpenes. So can you tell us about the terpene situation that you guys were dealing with? Did you guys do full terpene panels?
We did not do full terpene panels. The product analysis, so these were full spectrum products, right? But the growers, depending, so we didn't go into the strain specifics of what the terpene composition was of their products, but we didn't eliminate any of the terpenes and we didn't manipulate it, right? So we basically used whatever was found in nature in the plant. Nothing was eliminated, nothing was there. So we had the full spectrum, whatever, so different strains would have different concentrations of whatever, beta-caryophyllene or linalool or, so we didn't get that specific in terms of like choosing things like that. But that data is actually part of the full package in there. Right. So all the products, like
you guys had to be specific to get that first study done, right? Like y'all were already jumping through fire hoops just to try to get that one done. I understand.
Yeah, we're trying, and there was only, so we were self-funded with a corporate partner, which was Tyson Ranch, Mike Tyson's cannabis company. So that was our, so we self-funded and we had a small corporate partner. So there was limits to the amount of like the depth that you can go into certain things, So that was one of the things was we even had a discussion over full spectrum and isolates. And that, that happened. We had to eliminate the isolates out of it, just because of cost. It was just
like not flour.
And so the flour, we actually had discussions about that, right? The flour was because we did not want to create a barrier for people who were cannabis naive or averse to smoking, right? So there are some people who just didn't. And the interesting thing about that, we had 2 subjects who had history of nicotine use, smoking. And one of the spouses was like, we don't do like none of that stuff in the house because he used to be a heavy smoker, right? So they were like, nope, we're not, like, this is not happening. And we're like, that's fine, we're going to find a common ground. So a lot of these discussions did take place beforehand, and we're kind of like debating, no, let him smoke. It's got the, that's how we wound up with the nasal spray, because we wanted something that you can inhale and get into your alveoli real quickly and get it absorbed into the bloodstream. So the nasal spray was the alternative to smoking, realistically, to get that rapid absorption.
Absolutely. Someone's asking where they can read the study, because we're coming up on our the end of our show, of course, and I know we still got a few more things we want to talk about before we get off. But tell people where they can find information about the study.
Right now, it should still be up on the Conference on Cannabis Research website for the conference that took place virtually the 8th and 9th of April. I don't have like I don't know the link, the URL off the top of my head, but the abstract and the whole thing is there. The poster should be on my website. So we do have the poster. It's Dr. Damas. Nope, that's the old website, but that'll point you to the new one, drdamas.com. Just drdamas.com. So you can find it there. And if you follow me on Twitter or any of those things, I posted it. I posted the poster on there on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and my Twitter account. So we do have the poster up. If you guys are interested in poster, in looking at the posters, there's a JPEG or PDF of the poster that you can check out that has everything on there. So if you just go to drdamas.com and just follow me on Twitter, yep, that's it. Real easy. You can find that out. And then what we'll do is I will send you a link that you can put on your sites.
We'll get it put up on the M4MM site and everything. Yeah. So yeah, definitely everybody check back and make sure you tune in, because there's going to be more. This was just the tip of the iceberg there. Stanley's got some stuff going on. Stanley, let's get back into yours real quick. Tell us what are the next steps? I know you guys are. I think you're going through IRB review right now, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Correct? Yeah.
Yes. Bring it up to you. Our IRB review is going to conclude on Sunday, so I've got another probably 20 pages to really fine comb this following weekend. I tell people, when you're passionate about what you do, it doesn't feel like work or seem like work. And for us, we're going to have a live event with Dr. McNabb this month on the 27th. I'll be sure to post that. We're going to have Dr. James Smith, and we're going to be making the formal announcement. The research project will launch before the end of April. And Dr. Damas, I do want to follow up with you. I would love to have some of your input and introduce you to the research team in here. And it's really how we're going to move Georgia forward. So thank you so much, guys. It's going to be a great opportunity, and I look forward to presenting this data this time next year.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. It's a great process. It is. It is going to be a pain in the behind, right? But it's all worth it. It is, man. Like, the work that you do should be fulfilling. So even though there are barriers, I'm happy to be a part of it. At that point when I said to you, I just submitted an abstract to the Society of Interventional Radiology for a study that was accepted, and the hospital was like, dude, you're going to choose one. You don't even do this marijuana stuff that you get into, or you're going to do radiology. You can't do both. And I'm not going to say that was an easy decision, but I was like, this is what I want to do, So like, as much as it's going to hurt, like to give this up, right? But I know what I have to, I literally know what I have to do. So although you're trying to squeeze me in the corner, I had to walk away from that. And I've never felt bad about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
I can definitely relate.
Right? It's a great thing to like do, even though it's hard and there's a lot of stuff and this and that. It's a great time to be part of it. To see brothers doing all this stuff, and like Eric knows, we try to mess with the brothers and sisters as much as we can, right? We're like the black kids at the state school. There's only so much of us. It's like, you all got to get together and celebrate.
But you know what, Doc? This is why I think it's so important as well, that people see that we're not just growers. You know what I mean? We're not just consumers. We're contributing to the body of knowledge that is absolutely necessary in driving this industry forward and driving information about this as a medicine forward. And so that's what I get really excited when I can show examples of us adding true value to the overall conversation. That's when it gets really special for me. So, guys, as we wrap up, man, we're coming up on the 420 holiday. It's tons going on, man. So I definitely don't want to overlook or miss the opportunity to give you guys a chance to let people know what you got going on for 420 and where they can find you, how they can tap into you. So, Stanley, I'll let you go first and tell people, what you got planned for this week coming up.
So everyone, if you follow my page, you see tomorrow I'm doing a live Georgia medical cannabis update in person. I'm backed by popular demand. It's going to be in my hometown of Griffin, Georgia at Green Diamond CBD. It's going to be a great event. Get everyone caught up on the recent update, the recent legislation. Our permits for cultivation will be going out within the next month. So people need to be aware that we got roughly 30 dispensaries will be opened up. After that, I got to go downtown to Atlanta to support the World of Unoya. It's a Black-owned CBD, female-owned CBD brand here in Atlanta. I'll be speaking there. Sunday, we've got the Georgia Hemp Company going up to support what they've got going on. And I'm doing all this to get ready for surgery next Friday. So I'm going back again for another GI surgery next Friday. But we're confident we're going to keep up the mission. And it always keeps me humble about how I started. So thank you so much, man.
Hey, brother, I just appreciate everything you do and everything you stand for out there, man. Keep it up. And definitely, we're always praying for your good health and everything that you got going on there, man. And stay safe out there. We still are in COVID time. So, definitely be masked up and practice social distancing while y'all are celebrating responsibly. Yeah, we're celebrating responsibly. Say it one more time.
Masks will be mandatory tomorrow, everyone. There is limited seating available, and we will be adhering to those rules and regulations. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Doc, talk about you, man. I know you got some stuff going on this week as well.
Yeah, so Tuesday, we've got our 420 Wellness Day. It's our annual day of wellness, and we kind of do what we do, right? So we're going to start off, we'll have a sound healing and a meditation around 6, the Sunset Sound Healing Meditation. Then our medical director, Dr. Joshua Moore, who's actually a surgeon, general surgeon. He's going to be doing a workshop on the science behind the high of cannabis, right? So, why does it make you feel this way? What's happening, in your body? And, why are you getting these feelings or this kind of thing? And then, we'll have massages there. It's all social distance there. It's all mass social distance. It's outdoors. We have this large courtyard behind the space. So vendors, we partner with a couple of dispensaries, True Leave, Rise, give out some swag, some good stuff, and some discounts for our people. And then afterwards, we have a VIP after party, that Eric dissed me and say he wasn't coming through.
No. I'm still working on it. I'm still. I don't do like that.
I specifically sent him an invite call. He's coming through. He's like, "Nah, I'm not messing with you like that." Nah, so we have
to be honest, the one event that I'm really working to get to for 420 is your event, Doctor, because I want to bring down. I want to bring down our hemp hearts. For you guys and make some smoothies to work out in the morning. Yeah. But I also got something that is, really, really special that we're getting ready to release our all natural fruit bars that are CBD infused.
I literally was like, bring the fruit bars. I said, bring the fruit bars. You're like, nah, man, I'm not messing with you like that, son.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
All right, cool. So we'll have that, and we have like a little VIP party afterwards. Closed, safe space for people to enjoy themselves and be comfortable. Usual Miami scene, celebrities, athletes, that kind of stuff. But everybody's like really cool, really chill. And then next on the 28th, I'll be on Cheddar TV doing their NFL draft coverage with them. So if you guys want to check me out there, I think it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever time. They're doing their draft day NFL stuff, and we're talking about the NFL's marijuana policy and maybe trying to get them, to push forward with this study. And then we got a few other things coming down the pipe. I'll let you guys know about that. We have some other stuff with some athletes. We're partnering with the community because we're in Little Haiti, so we're literally in the Black community. There's a Little Haiti Cultural Arts Center, so we're trying to do some things with them with regards to not only overall health, but we're actually doing a COVID kind of pop up so we can get people to go get shots. So we'll like set up and arrange transportation to take them to our major hospital down here, which is Jackson Health Center. So it's kind of like what we do, man. It's like cannabis is part of a healthy lifestyle, whether it's meditation, whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical, whether it's traditional allopathic Western medicine or traditional, Ayurvedic or, Eastern medicines, and, whether it's spending good time with people, right, or exchanging intellectual information. It's kind of like, this is a wonderful thing to be part of, to have part of your life. So that's what we do, man. So come on down. Stanley, I know you can't make it because you got to get ready for you'll be tired. This dude's got a schedule like the president. Did you hear this?
Don't worry. I'd love to come down to Florida, collaborate with you, help do some educational events for the community. It'd be my pleasure.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, and you guys know we have our new chapter leader here, DJ Howard, who's been listening in. So shout out to DJ. He's got some things going on. I wish I had him on today to talk about everything he's got going on. But listen, you guys know 420 is a special time for us. I'm also celebrating with me personally, celebrating with the Peter Tosh family, because y'all know that's International Peter Tosh Day. So I'll be making a virtual appearance on their thing, and then they got some music on Clubhouse as well. So I may be popping up on some of that. But for we got a lot going on this week. Again, we got several different expungement clinics that folks are checking out all across the country. I don't have our flyer right here, but definitely if you have been following us on our all of our social media, Instagram and everything, we got a flyer out letting you know everywhere we're going to be, because we're putting on just service throughout the week. This is our way of giving back during this special time. And next Saturday, 24th, we'll actually be in Riviera Beach doing an expungement clinic. So, Doc, if you want to come up to that, man, come check us out. We'll be there on the 24th at City Hall in Riviera Beach. We're working with the city of Riviera Beach to do some expungements for folks in that community, wipe off these, again, these low-level marijuana possession charges, and hoping people to get back into society. So, again, this is, like he said, this is a lifestyle for us. It's not just something that we do, for the cameras. This is what we live. This is what we do. So thank you to everybody who joined us on Facebook, man. We appreciate y'all. Y'all are the most engaged audience across the country, man. So we appreciate y'all chiming in with your good questions, your good conversation, and so on. To my guests, to my co-host, my brother Stanley, man, I appreciate you. Brother, I'm going to be praying for you all next week, and we're pulling for you. Dr. Damas, my brother right here in Florida, man. Again, I can't thank you enough for all you have done to help move Florida forward. This is my home state. This is where I love. So, we're going to keep this fight going together. And, as always, y'all, this is the weekend. Go home, love on yourself, love on your family, get some rest, because come Monday morning, we got work to do. All right? So, we will see y'all again next week.
Let Roz know we rocked it too.
We
right?
rocked it, man.
We rocked it, right?
Fridays,
so, yeah, right. So give the brothers some love and don't call the feds on us no more.
Yeah. Yo, man, I love y'all brothers, man. I appreciate y'all, man, so much. So thank y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you all.